Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me for this episode are my friends and colleagues Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski's back after a maintenance day yesterday. Uh, we're ready. We're still glistening with the holiday spirit. We're getting ready for 2024. But before we get there, our last episode of 2023, and we'll start it off with a juicy one between the Habs and Canes. Montreal plus 202 on the road. Carolina welcoming them as a minus 250 favorite, and a total here 6.5. The homework you got to do here is that the Hurricanes have recalled Antti Ranta from his glorified conditioning stint, I think you could say. Um, he didn't play all that well in the AHL, but he's just not been good this season anyways, so I don't really think it depresses my opinion on him anymore if he goes. Um, they're in Nashville on Wednesday night. The Hurricanes are. So the Habs will be in Raleigh waiting for him. I actually think that Nick and I talked yesterday's show about how we like the Canes in Nashville, but I'm going to flip the other way here. I think the schedule spot, the way that the Canadiens want to play and the Hurricanes goaltending issues make them pretty vulnerable when they get to this kind of price in this kind of spot, Nick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that I've made the case all along that I still think Carolina deserves to be viewed as a top team. But like you say, at this kind of a number versus a Montreal team that just continues to hang around and play scrappy, close contests with Ranta in, huge question mark right now. I think you'd be a little crazy to want to lay this with Carolina. I think you'd have all kinds of better spots to target a big favorite. I mean, even on this slate, we'll get there, but I think if you really want to lay some big juice, I have a lot more faith in the Oilers, even though they're a considerably bigger favorite. Just doesn't really make sense to me to lay it here with Carolina. You know what Montreal wants to do. You know what they're capable of doing and the way they want to play. They're gonna own less of the play here, but they have the right avenues. Potentially a huge goaltending edge. We have no faith that Ranta's going to save any of the ones he's supposed to. So who knows? Maybe he'll bounce back. But like this is just not it if you're looking at a spot to back a favorite. And yeah, I think all those question marks definitely give you enough value to take a shot with the Canes and hope that things break your way. Probably won't be pretty, but yeah, this number is just too long.
First off, great to be back, fellas. I thought I would get a video tribute or something after my little maintenance day there, but it is what it is. Guess I'm getting the Dubas treatment. So what makes me a little nervous about this, and this will kind of be a theme throughout the show that I bring up, is the fact that Carolina will have a game under their belt by the time they play, and Montreal, obviously not. So I really think it helps Carolina here to have a game under their belt. I was looking like. I was hoping it would be the other way around, and I would take like the Habs to score first or something like that. Some sort of slower, if it was reversed. I think that the Habs are going to be off to a little slower start, having not played, and I think it bodes well for Carolina. So I don't really have the stomach for Montreal as much as I like the matchup in terms of the longer this goes, the more it plays into their hands, and the more it makes them a live dog. But you can call me an idiot, fellas, if that's the wrong way to think about it.
I think it's fair. I just think you have those same volatility question marks with Carolina. So, and I think this line will actually come down as people put it together. And then the other thing is Montreal has actually kind of started to perform a little better in terms of their underlying results. So people who look at that a lot of times, the bigger money. I actually think the Canadiens are plus 215 at time recording. I actually wouldn't be surprised if that comes down. I think that. So I think it's still the Habs or
Like
nothing.
180. Well, I could see 180.
Yeah, like that looks long. And Montreal's been competitive and they just hang around and just try to not make big breakdowns, let their goaltenders do their thing. It also could be a sneaky, I mean, it feels like it's obvious. You always almost have to keep in mind with Carolina with how well they're playing and the way the game scripts shake out, but it could be a decent spot to look at Montembeault to go over his save prop too.
There it is.
Could be another look, but you never know. Who knows? I mean, if it opens at 32.5, you have to pass. But if it's closer to like a normal line, 29.5, I think probably worth a shot.
I wonder if Montreal's goaltending is like the most overlooked thing in hockey betting right now because it just continues to. It's now been 2 years, or we're midway
It
through the
really has
second
been.
year. Yeah,
I know.
it's
And last year was so huge too. I have a friend who's a huge Montreal homer, and we were actually arguing about this last year because he was kind of blaming it on the goalies, and I was just like, "You are so out of touch. If you think that's what's going wrong with this team, it's kind of the same this year. They've maybe defended a little better than some people think. I don't know, but yeah, the goaltenders have definitely been really sharp.
Well, as much as we love to talk about teams with porous goaltending, yeah, I guess we don't talk enough about like I think just looking at this game and why you guys are talking me into Carolina a little more is just goaltending edge and 2-to-1 price. Like, come
Well, and
on.
Rant has been the clear worse option. We talked about it for the Nashville game, how Kochekov's stabilized. Like he's probably hasn't stabilized the way his numbers show, is what we were saying, because I think Carolina's played really, really sharp in front of him. But he's at least saving the shots he's supposed to the last five, which you have no faith. I mean, maybe Ranta will do better. It was surprising he did this horrible this season, but it still feels quite scary to back him at this kind of a number.
okay. On to I guess what you'd call the headliner if you're a casual fan here. And I say that because I've got no betting interest here in Kings and Knights. Pretty close to a coin flip, according to the odds makers. Los Angeles plus 105, Vegas minus 125, total of 5.5. Some goaltending homework you got to do for this one. It looks like David Riddick will get to start against San Jose on Wednesday night for the Kings. Who knows what's going to happen with the Vegas crease, Tim? And is that part of why you are jumping in on the Kings?
That's it right there. The fact that it looks like they're going to go with Rich in night one of the back-to-back, and that means we get Talbot, who's been, one of the best goalies in the league, one of the best surprises, or maybe a surprise, but he's played really well recently. So the fact that they're doing that, I think it's getting a bit overlooked in the market here. And I know home ice and stuff is baked into this, but I probably would bet the Kings as a dog in a series against the Knights. And, I would take it in both teams playing in a back-to-back. Goaltending edge goes to the Kings. I also think the Kings have a better roster. So that's why I'd bite on the plus money here.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's 100% Kings are past. They're playing better hockey there. I mean, if you're a home versus road guy too, the Kings are 13-1-1 on the
Yeah.
road. So clearly they don't care. One of those wins, they completely dismantled the Knights the last time, right? It was 4-0, and that game was not overly competitive. So yeah, I agree. I think with the goaltending edge factored in, and yeah, I think that this game should be a pick 'em. I don't really see how it's not priced that way. So I think if you're getting better than plus 100 on the Kings, pretty good. And then yeah, Talbot's been great. Um, he's benefiting from probably like the best defensive team play I think anyone's getting. So that's been a huge part of his turnaround, I think, and what's made it such a good fit. And also one of the points we always talk about in the Vezina race is you want to target these goalies on teams that defend well and are going to win a lot of games because that's where the Vezina winners come from. So it's a little interesting to consider with, the Vezina race still pretty wide open, but yeah, I really think you're on the right take here. I think it's Kings or pass for sure.
Flyers in Vancouver up next. Philadelphia plus 134, Vancouver minus 162, and a total of 6.5. I think all three of us are in agreement. If you've been listening to our show, you probably know where we're going here. And once again, caveat with we still think Vancouver is a good team. It's just the prices we're being dealt are maybe a little out of touch. And Philadelphia has been the best underdog in the NHL all season. So why, like, what would we be missing here if we didn't back Philadelphia in this kind of spot, which has basically been their bread and butter to this point this season? Like they're going up against a more talented team, a team that will be fancied more than them, and not just in terms of like betting people, but just casual pundits. And this is where they've made hay. So kind of a set it and forget it play here on the Flyers, Nick.
Yeah, I would go with Philly or nothing. The one thing I will point out is the pumping Philly up this whole time. They kind of had like a more modest run of play when you look at it through a really soft schedule the last 8 games or so. So that's the only thing here. But I still, especially coming out of the break too, it just feels like a pretty good number to take on a Flyers team that's just going to look to hang around and make this a coin flip type game. And yeah, I think it's just Philly or pass here. Don't really have any interest in targeting the Canucks. And it does kind of feel like they're due for just falling off a little bit this last run. But that's the thing. They really do continue to answer the bell kind of every time people challenge that they've been little lucky and so on. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of interest in this one though.
Yeah, I think the scary thing about Vancouver, and as much as we've been like, kind of waiting to buy a dip here, even though we do think they're a good team. We think they're a good team. Is that, you can call it lucky, but they're winning a lot of different ways, right? And that's what good teams do. I think of, that Boston team that went on the incredible run last year. They won a million games a million different ways, and that's what scares you
Mhm.
about Vancouver. Whereas a lot feel like has to go right for Philly to win, which is, basically kind of outwork a team, get good goaltending. We're we all love this Flyers team. So I feel like the Flyers are kind of our Eastern Conference Coyotes, even though that there might be too good to be in our Coyotes class. But how could we say that we're Philly guys if we don't back them at this number? And
Yeah,
that's what I feel makes me a little stupid. But it's like I think at the end of the year we're gonna look back at Philly and look at them being super profitable team to bet on. It's like, well, these are spots you kind of have to continue to buy, I feel like.
if you look, I think this is one of the interesting things about Vancouver, and I'll defend them here. If you look at the actual roster and the way a lot of guys are playing in their roles, this roster is really good. Like they're lining up. The third line has been unreal. Joshua's been great under the radar, and Connor Garland is just I love watching him. He's just such a dog. And JT Miller, Peterson, pretty good 1-2 punch down the middle. I look at this roster and I can see it. And even Zadorov Myers has been hanging in pretty well. I guess we got to give it to him. So it's one of those things, I guess, if you throw the underlying results out the window too, and you think about how good their goaltender is as well, like I can see how this is a top team. So yeah, it is they're just I feel like they're the most talked about team, and it's just really interesting. And then the other thing you look at, the Canucks gap at the top of the league would be a lot wider if they had the 3-point regulation win system in, and they have the best goal differential. So, like, I do think their underlying results on like a pretty standard level would show they're due to finish at a less high rate and see more goals go in their net. But those are all pretty convincing factors that this is a pretty damn good team. So I think I'm kind of putting a little stock into this recent run from the Canucks and wondering how good they really are.
It's not even all that close in terms of goal differential in the NHL overall, with Vancouver sitting at plus 46, and they haven't won a shootout, so none of that is uh, just the goal you get for winning the shootout too. So the next Vancouver plus 46, LA 12 goals back at 34, then Winnipeg plus 27. Interestingly, this kind of tells you the gap between the West, the bottom of the West and the bottom of the East. The top 5 teams in goal difference are all from the Western Conference. Okay, we'll wrap up Wednesday slate with Oilers and Sharks. We will talk about a pretty deep slate on Friday as well, and then give our thoughts on the Winter Classic since we won't be able to get together before then, and lines have been out for quite a bit. Oilers, first order of business though is Oilers minus 300 on the road, taking on the Sharks plus 240, 6.5 total here. We're not going to run down the same path that we did the last time these two teams played, where we were trying to retire. But that was back when the Sharks were looking like they could be historically bad, and the Oilers were gripping their sticks tighter than I've ever seen a hockey team grip its sticks amidst their 3-9-1 start. Ends up with the Sharks winning that game. A revenge spot, Nick, as a huge narrative better, the huge narrative better that you are. Are you backing Oilers minus 1.5 here because of the revenge spot? They need to get back at these Sharks.
Yeah, no, that's not my take here, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, how is the price not just the same as night one of the back-to-back for the Sharks? Which seems crazy to say. Obviously, you power rate the Kings above the Sharks, but with that said, if Skinner's going to play okay, like it's just hard to see how this falls apart for Edmonton. We've talked about it. They rank at the top of the league in any underlying statistic you look at, and private models all rank Edmonton even higher. That like they're actually playing even at a better level than most people realize. And then you look at the talent on the team; they should be finishing more. And I really think this is kind of a good spot to take the Oilers. I know it's a little scary laying it. Tim talked about teams coming out of this holiday break. With that said, you know how the top dogs on this Oilers team think. You know, McDavid and Draisaitl know where they're at in the standings, that they need to take advantage of this, unlike they did earlier in the year. So ultimately, I just think you can make them a slightly bigger favorite here, without looking too much into the narratives, which is kind of rare. It's obviously really chalky, but I actually think Edmonton should be a slightly bigger favorite here, um, than this number reflects, and that the square takes hopefully going to pan out being the right one, because I think that's what the numbers show, is that Edmonton's not quite getting the full respect here, and I want to target them getting these points in this kind of a spot right now. So it's a little ugly. It seems crazy. The Oilers are still in 27th in the league, which is nuts. I think they're a little higher on points percentage, but um, yeah, it's crazy that you can make that whole case and then look at it and they're sitting in 27th. But I think it's all valid. I think they can really. And then to look at the Sharks, kind of their point of view, we talked about it a little bit. They really have come back down to earth after that little push. They've not been good. The last stretch feels like they've just kind of a little dead cat bounce they're on, and they look horrible again. So I think it's a good
Perfect time to buy, Nick. Perfect time to
Yeah,
buy.
I know, and it's funny because I'm sure we said a lot of similar things when it was the last Oilers Sharks game, but I still think it's right.
I am not playing the game because I put the face paint away. I do not want to do that again. So that the face paint has been retired, and which means I don't bet Oilers Sharks anymore. Even though,
Mail it to me if
yeah,
Yeah.
seriously,
Oilers blow
express
this
ship.
one. I'll do a show with it on.
I'll just add that the Oilers are 24th in points percentage, Nick, and they are, I believe, top like right around 16th in goal difference. So they will. I think they will catch up. Hot take.
Yeah, I
They
know
will
it's fun.
catch up
I
to
think
that that kind of
that
stuff.
wild card spot is looking
Yeah.
ripe for the picking still.
There won't be value really, I don't think, but we'll know right away in this game if like what it's gonna look like. You
That
know,
is true. You could kind of, because it would be probably a reasonable narrative to see the Sharks kind of come out a little sharper after playing the night before, and then consider Edmonton getting into it after that. I think that could be probably an angle to get in. And even that first game, which I think you would have, that was kind of clear. Like 10 minutes in after we had pumped up all these Oiler angles, we were like, oh fuck, we're dumb. Because I think it was just clear the way it was gonna go. But they did then turn it on for the third, and it ended up getting at least all the shot props there and really caved them in. So I think you could definitely see that kind of a narrative in this game. It could be probably a decent spot to consider a live bet on Edmonton as well.
oh yeah, and I did realize in that I'm gonna take Sharks to score first, actually. That's what I'm gonna take. We'll have a little fun here. See if they can have a little more jump on the back to back. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, maybe a hat trick bet on Draisaitl for me. We'll see. Okay. Let's talk about Friday before the Winter Classic. I wanted to get this slate in because it's deep, and I think there's some fun spots to target. One that Nick and I both are in agreement on, the Panthers against the Rangers. I also like the Flyers. I'll let Nick talk about the Panthers, but I like the Flyers in Seattle. I think that we might get a little bit of a classic college football look ahead spot out of Seattle in that one, as they get ready for the Winter Classic on Monday. Plus, it's the Flyers, so even if they're sleeping at the wheel even just a little bit, what team would you rather have on the other side of it than Philadelphia, even on on the back-to-back. So those are the two I have, and I think that the back-to-back could give us a decent price on Philly in Seattle, I should say. But Rangers and Panthers was another one we had circled both as a spot to back Florida.
Yeah, I think it's a really good spot to back Florida. I hate fading the Rangers because it's so damn annoying when you just run into like a really good Shesterkin performance or they just get caved in at 5-on-5 and win it on the special teams. But based off the look ahead numbers we're seeing right now, I think we're going to have the price to bet Florida. I still think this team is really good. We talked about it ahead of the Lightning game, and people really got on them ahead of this Lightning game. For what it's worth, that was we had someone reply saying how like it seems fishy that we're a slight dog, and now the price is I think where it was supposed to be all along, and I think that's just because sharper people in the market right now still realize how good this Florida team is, despite what's a little lull. And the Rangers have had a much more modest stretch of play at even strength. They're kind of looking more like that imbalanced Rangers team we're used to seeing. I don't think they're like a complete wagon above the rest of the league, and still prefer the build of Florida's team a little more. So I think it looks like the prices should be there. I'd play Florida down to about -150, I think, in this spot. Pending, injuries coming out of their game tonight. But yeah, I think right around that is when you want to target Florida too.
Yeah, I think. Oh, my bad. They both.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add that I think Florida is the best team in the Eastern Conference, so I'm going to bet them at a shorter price every single time. And I know we've had some tough luck fading the Rangers, but like you said, Nick, you bet it up to 150. I feel like it's going to open shorter than that, and I'm going to bet that team. I love this Florida team so much.
Yeah, and people talk about how this year they're kind of looking a little more winning games like Paul Maurice style lately, and they're kind of grinding it out. But if you look at the underlying results, they're still generating chances like an Oilers. And then all the offensive pieces are still there. So yeah, they're not scoring the way that we'd expect. They've had, you're getting shut out by the Kraken and stuff, but that happens. That's just the ups and downs of like regular season hockey. And you look at the offensive talent that is still there and the way they're generating chances, I think that's going to turn around. I don't really think you want to downgrade them too much offensively. So I agree with you. I think there's a very legitimate case that this is the best team in the East right now. Yeah. So it just looks like you're getting a good number.
Okay. Anything else on Friday? You wanted to talk about, of course, the Coyotes and your Caps.
Yeah. There's two more. Okay, so just based off, I think the Caps versus your Islanders, Mike. I don't think the Caps are that good. I also don't think the Islanders are that good, and the Caps could be about +130 in this game. It looks like if you can play them at better than +120, I would take them. It looks like a good time for me to target. I mean, there's probably even a better chance this game goes to overtime, and in that case, I'd love to have the Caps at +120. All they want to do is hang around playing low event hockey, letting their goaltenders thrive. They've defended really well. So I just think all that works towards the number here. And then same thing with the Coyotes. We haven't had many chances to bet them recently. And I am really interested to see how the Ducks look Wednesday night in another game with Zegras back and a healthier roster. But I think the price could be there. The Coyotes, one thing I feel like they've done quite well is claiming these points they're supposed to get. And it could be a decent time to buy low looking at what the prices should be. So I think if you can get the Coyotes at -130, I would play them as well.
Okay. Winter Classic. Seattle Kraken hosting the Vegas Golden Knights at, what do they call it now? It's not Safeco Park in Seattle.
I think it's AT&T.
AT&T.
Or am I wrong?
How many baseball fields are named AT&T ballpark these days? It's like Canada. All the rinks are either Rogers
I'm wrong.
Place
that doesn't look right.
It's where the Mariners play.
It's a nice field. I've been there. Being the Canadian am.
I'm seeing next year I'm going to see Taylor Swift at the Rogers Center in Toronto, and I thought the Rogers Center was like 7 different places before I like figured out where to buy my hotel.
Tim goes to Vancouver.
I was like, wait, where is this again? I forget where we're going.
There's 3 of them, right? There's Rogers Place, Rogers Palace, and Rogers Center. Then you got the Scotiabank Arena, Scotiabank Place in Halifax. It's crazy. Anyways, we'll put that conversation aside and focus on the betting for the Winter Classic. Seattle's a home underdog plus 134. The Knights minus 162, total of 5.5. A lot of people throw out trends. We've had a bunch of these Winter Classics now. I think so much of it is matchup dependent. Like, because you'll serve up the first one ever, for example, that went to shootout. It was like 2-2, and it was kind of a slog. A lot of that was just they didn't know what
It
they
was
were
a
doing yet.
snowstorm, and it was a
Yeah, it was a
snowstorm.
snowstorm in Buffalo.
This
Nobody,
Pens one, yeah.
yeah, nobody knew what they were doing either. Like it just was, and then it in a weird way, it's kind of just become more of a normal game, I think, over the past few years. But I will say, I do think this game is a good bet to go past regulation, because when you look at these two teams, as good as Vegas is, they aren't the type of behemoth to just like we saw out of Colorado a couple years ago, where they'll just get their legs under them against certain teams and run away. Like that's just not who they are right now. And Seattle, we do like them to trend up even just a little bit. It just kind of comes down to the goaltending. And the total's telling you that it's 5.5 right now. We'll see where the juice is towards the over. We'll see where it ends up. I do think it might hang here because most people think Winter Classic, bet the under. But
Yes.
even so, that's telling you that the bookmakers aren't expecting this thing to be 7-4, which is good for an overtime bet as well. So that's what I'm going to be playing. I'll be playing, this game to go past regulation. I think if I had to pick a side, I would choose Seattle. But those are my thoughts here. Nick, anything on the Winter Classic?
Yeah, I think that's a good handicap. I don't think the Winter Classic's ever a great time to lay bigger bets. Maybe the times that there's kind of been smash spots on the under, I guess, if like the ice is like actually unplayable, I think that's when it's a factor. Like you look at that, like the Caps Pens one when they postponed it 3 hours and everyone knew the ice was just complete mush and the game gets going and no one can even make a play. I think that's maybe when those under trends are a little more relevant. But I think the overtime bet is a fun way to get in on this. Seattle just sets up as such a like hang around team right now. And I think when you throw a little extra hype into the mix, you're a little, you're more likely to see teams both come out quite prepared. Hopefully less mistakes, keeps the game a little tighter. So yeah, I think the overtime bet is a good punt, a good way to get some action on like what will be a standalone fun game. So I think that's a good take.
Yeah, I'll be the sucker here. I'm gonna go over the 5.5 because I just think I'm trying to zag on these two teams are especially cracking low event team outdoors. Let's go under. I'm trying to go the other way and get over 5.5 goals here. I feel like I've watched so many of these and I pulled up the numbers and it's like, it's pretty back and forth.
I was gonna
over
say,
under.
Tim, if you're gonna take a day off, you better be showing up here with that data on these over under things.
Well, it doesn't. It's all there's too many factors, like you said, with like sometimes the ice is mush, sometimes the sun is shining in the goalie's eyes. So there's too many extraneous variables here, but I'm just gonna go over because I want to have something on it. And I could see some power play goals from Vegas, and yeah, it's a really strong handicap out of me here. But hey, the playing an outdoor game, I want to watch it and have something. I'm gonna go over.
I think to look at it like from another point of view too, 5.5, unless you're gonna significantly move the needle for the fact that it is an outdoor game and the spot is pretty damn low for a Vegas game, the way their games have been going right now. Like
Right.
they've been a pure over team for like 3 weeks.
And look at the potential goaltending matchup we could have.
Yes.
I love
Yeah,
this is a great thing about the Winter
exactly.
Classic. Like for years, it was just Ty Conklin was playing in these games, and now like it's always. I feel like we always get these weird kind of third string goalies popping up. And this year could be Joey Decord and Yuri Patera.
Vegas might call him. Wait, what's Conklin doing?
Yeah, Conklin's still around. He's I'm sure he's kicking it up.
E-bug him at least, right?
Yeah, like you got it. That would be great. Just e-bug him. God, the sport had a sense of humor. All right, well, that'll do it. Those are our thoughts on the Winter Classic. Be sure to check actionnetwork.com and the app as we get closer to the game, which is on Monday, New Year's Day at 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you didn't know, For Tim and Nick, I'm Michael. Happy New Year. We hope you had a great holiday period. Hopefully, we win you some money over these next few days that you can use to fatten your wallet back up after buying everyone gifts. But until we meet again in 2024, thank you for listening, and see you then.